Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to have you here today. And Scott, Schang, and I are bringing the latest thoughts on what's going on with AI and how smart people are using it. I got a story for you in just a minute. My video is off because I have a slow connection, but you should be able to hear me just fine. I am telephoning in from Dubuque, Iowa, and Scott is in Colorado. Is that right?
That's right.
And Scott reached out to me a couple of months ago, and he has been speaking intensively with people who attended the AI Simplified course about 6 months ago. And he got huge positive feedback from the course, but also lots of questions that people are still continuing to have. And a lot of people feel like AI just became another job. And it doesn't have to be that way, but that is the truth for probably most entrepreneurs, is that it's a whole new web of complexity. Now, I have a story for you about AI that's less than 24 hours old, that is right out of my personal experience right now. I am writing a science grant and applying for some money. And I sat down, I spent quite a few hours writing the story the way I know how to write it, which is in a conversational, sales letterish sort of way, including as much proof as I knew how to put into it. And all of you are sort of familiar with what that might look like. Then I went on Upwork and I hired a couple of grant writing experts. And I found one in particular that looked really good. I paid her a few $100s and I said, I bought 2 hours of her time. And I said, read through this and tell me what's right or wrong with it. And she came back and she had a whole bunch of criticisms, but her biggest criticism was, this is not in the format that grant committees want something to be written in. There's a standard format for this. And she sent me a template right out of a US government website. And she said, it needs to follow this template. So I took my 50 pages of combination of stuff that I'd written with some notes and some scribblings and some scratch pad. I took all of that. I went to Claude, and then I asked Claude to answer each question one by one the way that it was on the standard form. I started that about 8 o'clock this morning, and within an hour and a half, I have a very rough draft of the way they want it. What I noticed was Claude gets about 2/3 or 3/4 of it right, and it hallucinates the rest. Well, I can figure that out, and I can fix it. And one of the things AI is really good at is turning things from one form into another. Even though they may say the same thing, they have completely different styles. And this is literally as of a half an hour ago. This is a project I'm working on. This is a very important project, by the way. This is mission critical. And so I want to bring Scott on. Scott, like I said, taught our AI Simplified course in February. We got huge rave reviews, but Scott, can you tell people about the intensive surveying and the conversations that you've been having with people about what they're doing and not doing, what they're feeling good about and not feeling about?
Yeah, that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. The sentiment about AI and the perception of AI is so across the board. This feels like um, kind of our whole marketing worlds have just been jolted. Like it doesn't even feel like a shift. It feels like a jolt because it's happened so quickly and it's such a buzzword now. And and what I'm finding over and over again, which AI is really good at, but I'm identifying these patterns over and over again about how people are hearing about it, what's preventing people from getting started with it. And then once they get started with it, they're basically taking old ideas about how we use technology and trying to apply it to this new technology. And it's just not jiving. It's just not fitting properly. It's not turning into what they want it to be. And um and what I found and what I'm and that was the reason why I wanted to do this, Perry, because again, I've talked to probably 200 people since the AI Simplified course. I read all of the AI news every single day. Um, I get on mastermind calls with super high level people, marketers, engineers, and people that are talking about and thinking about AI and what they're using it for. And what I see out there a lot, Perry, is people are taking a solution that they think and well, actually there's two camps of AI people. There are the marketers that have jumped on this and built very crude tools, and they're out there trying to sell us every solution that they think we have a problem for. and and they're like, this is the best thing, this is the thing. What I'm also finding is there's very much a Windows versus Apple thing going on too, because you've got people that are in the Claude camp and they're like, Claude is the best, and then you got people in the OpenAI, the Chat GPT camp, and they're like, Chat GPT is the best. And so there's all of this noise, and then we've got the engineers and the computer programmers who are dissecting it and trying to show it and talking about how the innards work. And they're saying, well, it's acting like this and it's not acting like that. But they're really, the reason why I wanted to do this, and I don't know if I answered your question or if that was my cue to go into my rant, but once I get started here, it's hard for me to stop. But I didn't see a middle ground. I didn't see a DMZ zone where we could have conversations about AI without being sold something and without being having it explained to us in a way that most people don't understand. It is that does that answer
Yes,
your question, Barry?
there is a chasm between the techies and the non-techies, and sometimes neither of them is doing it the most effective way that they really could.
No.
And it's not that there's a right way and a wrong way. There's a
Oh,
lot of ways to
yes.
use AI. One thing I've noticed, because I've watched a lot of clients, a lot of people, is every personality approaches it differently. If I look at the prompts that people type in, I see people type in stuff I would never think of. And Scott, so a year ago we had a conversation. We hadn't talked in a year or two, and and I just wanted to catch up with you. And you said, "Well, I have flung myself into AI. I'm helping." At the time, there's lots of people in the mortgage industry use AI, and then about 3 or 4 months later, you sold your mortgage business and you went full time in this. And Scott is not a techie, not a programmer, not a propeller head, not a guy with a computer science degree from Stanford. And Scott just crawls inside the machine and uses it as a playground. And Scott,
Yeah.
put, you can put better words on this, but basically you just decided this next business I'm in, it's only allowed to be fun. Can you explain that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, listen, when I started, when I crawled into AI, um, it was a choice that I made to just have an adventure and just have fun. Like I have not been this intellectually and creatively stimulated in decades. And you know, you said something important, Perry, about how people use it. And we, you know, we talked about this in the AI Simplified course. AI isn't a thing. It is like electricity. It is the power that you plug your ideas and your imagination into. And it can augment that and it can change and it can show it to you in different ways. It is not a single thing. It is going to be something completely different for every single person because every single person is completely different. It's a booster shot, it's an electrical charge, it's a turbo drive on what you already are and what you already do. But yeah, I'm like when I got into this, and quite frankly, Perry, you're partially responsible for me making a complete shift in my entire life. Because when I talked to you, I realized, wow, people really are interested in this, and not a lot of people are thinking about it and talking about it the way that I do. Uh, you know, we call this AI simplified because well, I took I think your detox course that you did, detox declutter, and one of the things that you had everybody do is reach out to people that you know and ask them to describe aspects of you. And what I got back overwhelmingly was that my superpower was making complex topics easy to understand. And I am
Yes.
and I embraced that and I recognized that that's what I had always done in the mortgage industry, trying to explain mortgage financing to consumers. And it's like I was born for something that was just born less than 2 years ago. That's what it feels. That's what it feels like to me. So that's what I bring to this. Like I am, and a lot of you know this, and you can throw it in the chat if we've had this conversation. But I can't tell you how many times I got off the call with somebody and they were just like, "Man, you are so excited about this. Now I'm excited about this." And you've completely opened up my eyes to a new way to look at this because I truly am. I'm just like, I'm like a kid in a candy store with this stuff. It just fits so perfectly with how I want to play. And so that's what I'm proposing here. That's why I approached Perry and I was like, hey, I want to build a sandbox and I just want to play all the time. And Perry said, cool, let's figure it out.
Well, Ted Prodromo wrote in the chat, this feels like when Perry went all in on Google AdWords 20 years ago. Yes, yes.
Yes.
And the only way to do it was crawl inside the machine. I had a meeting in 2006 at Google. Um, I was going to be in Silicon Valley. A friend of mine said, "Well, why don't you get a hold of somebody at Google and see if they'll meet with you?" I found an email of somebody's executive assistant of one of the higher ups. I emailed her. Within an hour, she emailed me back and she said, "I've got you a meeting with," and let me tell you who's in the meeting. Marissa Mayer, who's now the CEO of Yahoo, David Fisher, who I don't know what he's doing now, but for a while he was the operations manager at Facebook. All these people were in the Google AdWords department. And I went to Google headquarters. I had this meeting with them. And at one point, they knew who I was. I've written this Google book. It's been out for a couple years. And one of them said, "How do you know if something you say is wrong?" And I say, "Oh, my customers will tell me." That wasn't the answer she was looking for, but it was true. And this is what Scott's done. And so, Scott, what I'd like you to do is start taking us through your slides because you asked a bunch of very, very calculated questions to the people who took AI Simplified, and you found some really interesting patterns.
Yes. No, I absolutely did. Okay, let's go through the slides. Let's go ahead and set this up. Let me see, click on this. Okay, so why are we calling this Renaissance Lab? I truly feel like this is a new Renaissance, and Perry talks about this a lot, about wanting to be on the forefront and create a new Renaissance in a lot of different areas. He's doing it in science. He's doing it in spirituality. He's doing it in everything. And this truly is a Renaissance to me. And when we think about the Renaissance, we think about, the statue of David. We think about Leonardo da Vinci. We think about even Shakespeare is in there, and all of these massive advancements, like these paradigm shifts in art and architecture and education and science and even politics. But we look back at the outcome from that, and we call that the Renaissance period, but that wasn't the real Renaissance. The real Renaissance was coming out of centuries of the Dark Ages. People started having an urge to go back to old knowledge and old ideas and information, and they collaborated. And they got together and they got artists together and architects together and scientists together, and they started sharing their ideas. And what they created is they created this just shift in humanity that was the collective input of all of these individuals, that resulted in an experience that was greater than any one individual. Now, Leonardo da Vinci was kind of on the beginning of that in the early 1400s, but by the mid 1500s, you have Michelangelo. And then the Medici family started in 1451, I believe. They started the Accademia di Florencia, and that's where the dome in Florence came from, and the statue of David. So the real Renaissance was the collaboration and the intersection of ideas and inspirations that caused all of these people to see things in a different way. And then what came out of that was far greater than anything that anybody could have ever come up with individually. Now, in 500 BC, there was a pre-Socratic scholar called Heraclitus. And Heraclitus is attributed with saying that the only constant in the universe is change. He's also accredited for saying that you can never stand in the same river twice. And when you think about how profound that is, that the water is always moving. Now, what's interesting about the environment that we're in today is that water, it's almost like rapids. Like the water is going so quickly. It was less than 200 years ago, we had the Industrial Revolution, we had communication, radio, TV, the internet, and now we've got AI, and it's happening so quickly. And what ends up happening is most people stand on the banks of that river and they look at it and they say, wow, that river is rushing quickly. I'm afraid to go in there. Or they dip their toe in it and they're like, oh, that's a little chilly. I'm going to wait till the sun comes out and maybe warm it up a little bit. And I would say that anybody who's on this call today, you're wading into this river, but so many people are still standing on the banks and they're waiting to see what happens. Well, almost 2 millennia later, we have a French author. His name is Jean-Baptiste Alphonse Karr, and he's attributed with saying that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I really want to emphasize this because when we talk about AI, I see so many people that are thinking, how do I how is AI going to fix my business or help my this or create this new thing? Well, just because AI was invented doesn't mean that you don't have to come up with ideas. It doesn't mean that you don't have to know who your target demographic is for your business. It doesn't mean that you don't have to know what kind of messaging that you need to do your distinctive selling proposition to attract your clients to you. It doesn't mean that you still don't have to provide value. None of this stuff changes. That's not what AI does. It doesn't change any of that stuff. Now, I actually do not like the term artificial intelligence. And if you join me on the Renaissance Lab and you're part of this movement, you're going to see me pushing hard against this because the term artificial intelligence, it sort of implies this kind of all-knowing. We think of HAL 9000, or we think of this AI, or we think of robots taking over the world. It is not all-knowing. Now, what it is a global consciousness of all of the information that's available on the internet that's put into this thing, and it's going through and it's sorting it and it's reasoning around it, and it's trying to comprehend it, and it's providing output to us that feels like human language, like natural language. And so that's why it feels new to us. What it also is not is it's not autonomous. It's not just going to, you're not going to say, AI, go start this business for me and make it work. Like, it's not going to do that. It is the fuel that will power your ideas and what you're already doing. So what I want to do is I want to start calling it augmented intelligence, because I'll tell you what, I'm so deep in this, and there is nothing artificial about what you can produce and what the experience is when you truly create like this intellectual symbiotic relationship with AI. It becomes an augmented intelligence. It takes what your ideas are and it amplifies those ideas, and it projects those ideas, and it shows them back to you in a way that allows you to have new perspectives on something that you already came up with. Like, you already knew what it was. So, by the way, every image that you've seen was created with AI. None of this is real. But is it real? That's a real photograph, but it's not a picture that somebody took. It was an idea that I had in my head, and I said, can you show me what this idea would look like through text? And I described it in text, and then it showed me my idea, showed it, and it showed it to me in this way. So that's a really cool thing. So what I proposed with Perry was I want to create a Renaissance lab. I don't want to just have conversations. I don't want to teach, because that's what I was going through my head. I was like, AI Simplified was so fun, and I feel like we helped so many people. And the relationships and the conversations that I had were so incredible. But I have this really bad feeling. What Perry said in the beginning is, I chose to have fun. Like, I want to be stimulated. I want to have fun with this. And if I carve out one thing that I do with AI and I teach that one thing to you, that robs you of your creativity. It robs you of your potential to use this new energy source to power your ideas. So I wanted to create a laboratory environment where we can take your ideas and help turn those into hypotheses, and take those hypotheses, turn those into theories, and then take those theories and turn them into action items using the fuel, using the tool of augmented intelligence. See what I did there? So now, the number one question we asked all of you when you signed up for this webinar, what is your biggest pain point? And the number one question by far was, how do I get started? There's so much. What do I understand? So this is Andreessen Horowitz, Mark Andreessen, old school AI tech guy. I think he started Netscape and then he created Mosaic, which was one of the first web internet browsers. So he has a venture capital fund that contributes to the creativity of humanity, focused mostly on AI. And every month, he publishes the top 50 AI platforms by monthly visits. I don't know about you, but this makes my eyes cross. There is so much out there. How do we get through this? How do we know what we're supposed to use?
So
So
let's just clear out
go ahead.
the misconception that anybody has to figure out all 50 of these. In fact,
No.
I think you'd never get any sleep and your eyes would bleed.
Well, and a lot of these are what are called wrappers, that they're actually powered by a couple of these AIs, and then they just put a wrapper on top of it, and you're using the same technology. But no, most people won't use these things, won't use all of these. And we are going to clear that up. That is the one thing we're going to do in AI Lab, is we're going to help match you. We're going to help you identify what's the right solution for what you're trying to accomplish. So what we are going to do in AI Lab is it's a 2-hour call. And we'll talk more about this at the end, but we're going to do a 2-hour call twice a month. I'm going to spend the first 30 minutes talking about what the changes are, discussing what the changes are. A lot of that is going to come from the input and the questions from everybody who's in the laboratory all of the time. So we're going to address, hey, here's what came out. You may have heard this in the news. Here's how you can think about it and determine whether this is something that you want to do or not. The other thing that we're going to do is we are going to answer questions. We are going to solve problems. We are going to get you unstuck. So this is a little bit of an example. When we had you sign up, we had you ask the questions, what was your biggest pain point? Now, I used AI, I threw it into AI, and I basically said, I want you to go through all of these questions, and we had over 150 questions, and I said, I want you to categorize these into the 4 main categories of questions that people have, and then give me the top 3 questions that are representative of each one of these categories. So I'm going to go through these 4 categories and I'm going to answer some of these questions. Now, for the sake of time, I'm just going to give you my input so that you can kind of get a feel for what this is going to be like. But in the lab, we're going to be pulling up platforms. I'm going to show you how to do these things. Like, this is a laboratory. We are going to do experiments, and I'm going to show you how these things work. So where do I start? Really, Jason, that was probably the most popular question. And where you start is where you are right now. You start by getting involved in conversations and putting yourself in an environment where people are having real conversations about this and trying to find real solutions. We will never sell anything in the Renaissance Lab. This is a discussion. It's a mastermind. It's a laboratory where we take ideas and we turn them into actions. There's so many tools available. Each one is touted as best. Alan, this is another really good question. And I would say there are probably only 2 platforms that you should seriously start looking at, and you don't even have to invest in them. But I would say it's ChatGPT and it's Claude. They are by far the 2 leaders, and they do something completely different. So part of being a part of the Renaissance Lab is we're going to figure out how you want to use it. And then I'll show you examples of how I've used it for that specific task. Or we'll pop open one of the platforms and we'll do it, and we'll compare it. More often than not, I will take the same prompt and I will put it in 2 or 3 different platforms, and I will see what the output is. And whichever one gives me the output that's closest to what I expect, then I'll finish going through that. So there are a lot of tools, but they all kind of do the same thing. And it's very, very easy to narrow down. Now, Karen, this is a really good question. How do I get started when searching Google works fine for me? Well, this is probably the second biggest hurdle that people have, is they they think that AI is like Google. It is not like Google. Google is a library of keyword indexed documents. And if you type in a question, the librarian comes back with a big stack of books and says, here, look through these. I have no idea if they're any good. The best, smartest marketers stuffed the right keywords in there to show up on top, but is that really the best answer to my question? That's not how AI works. AI is a contextual environment where it takes words and ideas and phrases and groups them into like clouds of ideas. And when you ask it a question, it consults all of these different perspectives on these ideas, and it tries to guess what you're asking it. So what's interesting, and this is where most people have challenges, is they're using AI like Google. They're asking it questions and they're getting back worse than Google answers because there's no context. It's not a deep enough question. And so what you're getting is a very general answer. And what you're going to learn in Renaissance Lab is how to communicate with AI, because anything that you can concisely communicate, you can get a perspective on that you wouldn't have been able to come up with on your own. So it really falls on us. It falls on how we communicate with it. So getting started and learning the basics, we are absolutely going to do that. And the way that we've designed Renaissance Lab is this is something that, listen, you can just get started and you may not want to come and show up to the lab anymore, and that's perfectly okay. But I guarantee you that if you want to know how to get started and you want to know what the basics are, you are absolutely going to get that in the Renaissance Lab. The second biggest category was optimizing and enhancing output. How do I create a long form blog that is SEO optimized? So we had a couple of these. Actually, I want to point this out because this is good. I'm told AI content is no bueno for SEO. And this was from Mr. Spain in Portugal. I see what you did there. You threw in some Spanish. Now, the overwhelming majority of us will use AI that's integrated into the tools and the technologies we already use. If you're asking about SEO, how do I do keyword research? The tools that you already use are going to integrate this technology to do basically the work for you. So Ahrefs, anybody that's familiar with Ahrefs, and there's a few of these, they are scouring the internet and they're building databases of keywords and associated keywords, and primary and secondary keywords and associated information. And then they're using AI to go through those databases and find patterns and uncover ideas that maybe you haven't thought of. So for SEO, you need data. If you have a ton of data, you can go through it and you can say, extract the keywords for this. You can absolutely, it knows what Google's SEO best practices are. I use it for this very, very consistently. I have a prompt that writes me I can take a video transcript and it'll write me 1,000-word SEO optimized blog posts with headlines and bullet points, so it's easy to read, and it's SEO optimized for the keywords that I want. It is very well versed on SEO best practices, but this isn't exactly happening yet, but it's very, very close. I think AI search is going to replace what we consider SEO right now. It's definitely in 5 years, but in the next 12 months, we already have tools like Perplexity, which is an AI-driven tool, which again is not looking for keywords, it's looking for context, and it's looking for specific context based on how you're asking your question and how concisely you're communicating what it is that you're looking for. ChatGPT has just released a search engine. It's called Search GPT. It's only available to like 10,000 users right now. I was on the list. I did not get chosen, but I have read articles from people that do have it, and they say that it is a completely new level, a completely new experience on search engine optimization. So a lot to work with there. Optimizing and enhancing AI output. How can I use layered prompts to refine the first response? These are our babysitting. How do I get AI to write better human copy and then pseudo information? So these are all these babysitting questions. Quite frankly, the answer to this is learning how to ask better questions. Well, the first one, to layer prompts, there's a couple of different ways to do that, and I will absolutely show you how to do that. You can either do it within a single chat thread. Now, here's another thing. This question would have been difficult to answer, Sharon, and 6 months ago. But today, these things are improving so quickly and so well that these things are now possible today. And there are multiple methods for doing that. Again, Sharon, this would be a situation where if you and I had a conversation, I guarantee you in 30 minutes or less, I could get you on the exact right track to accomplish specifically what you're trying to do. Barbara, how you get it to write better human copy is you give it examples of human copy. You give it examples of your input. Remember, it's not going to do something for you that you can't already do yourself. It's just going to help you to do it faster. It's going to help you to do it maybe better because it's going to give you some different perspectives and some different ideas that maybe you weren't thinking about it in that particular way. And then the pseudo information, again, this is input. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. And I'm going to show you specifically how to do that. Which AI tools and platforms to use. Again, this kind of goes back to the slide that I showed you all of these things. It depends on what you want to use it for. And in the AI lab, again, this is a laboratory where we do experiments, is if you should tell me specifically what you're trying to do, I'll show you, well, here's a couple of different ways you can do this, which one feels the best for you. So the best platform to use, well, and actually I'm going to revert back to a question that I get on CRMs. And I think everybody has heard this. What's the best CRM? Well, the best CRM is usually the CRM that you use. And that's true with this as well. You've got to spend a little bit of time in these AIs and learn their personality, learn what they're good at, learn what they're bad at. And again, there are only 2 or 3 that you really need to worry about. The rest of them are just trying to do what the other ones are doing. But there is a clear division between the capabilities and the output of like OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Claude. And those, quite frankly, are the only 2 I would focus on unless we determine that your specific use case. Best approach to building a custom bot. There are a few different ways to do this. ChatGPT, I believe, has the best user experience and has the best consistency and output. There are ways to create custom GPT style experiences in Claude. This morning, I read that Google has just released a custom GPT, or they're going to be releasing a custom GPT. And in our third call, so we're doing two-hour calls a month. The first call is going to be ChatGPT. We're going to focus on that. The second call, we're going to focus on Claude. And the third one, we're going to focus on a platform called Poe. And Poe is a way to create a chat bot, and you can use any of about 50 different LLMs, 50 different AIs. And so you can test each one. You can take a prompt and you can say, how does it work here? How does it work here? How does it work here? So those are going to be our first three kind of inaugural labs, Renaissance labs that we're going to do, is we're going to cover those threes. And then the best AI tools for most projects, Tim, it's ChatGPT and it's Claude, hands down. That's if you're doing copy, that's if you're doing reasoning, that's if you're doing data analysis. If we start talking about video and creating images, I've been playing a lot with that too, and I've been having a lot of fun with that, and we will absolutely address that. And it's no it's no surprise that the advanced applications and integration questions are much longer and much complex. Simon string together various AI processes. So that's called agentic AI. And you want to think of that as each GPT is, and the way I describe this in AI Simplified, and I still think this is the best way to describe this, is a GPT is a highly specialized non-payrolled employee. And you can train a GPT to be the best in the world, a world-class expert at one task. And then you can introduce another GPT, and in ChatGPT, that's as simple as hitting the @ symbol, Shift 2. You hit Shift 2, it gives you a list of all of your custom GPTs, and then you pull in the next specialist, and you say, I want you to build off of what the previous specialist just did. So that's the simple way to do it. Programmatically, you can do it with programmers can do this. And I actually have a couple of friends that are making some really, really impressive strides with basically you're giving a prompt to the project manager GPT, and it's building a team of professionals, having them do the tasks, reviewing all the tasks, and then giving you the output. And yes, Google ad headlines, Google Ads descriptions. Again, you have to already know who your client is, what their pain points are. You can ask AI, here's what my client demographic is, as far as I know. Can you expand on this and give me demographic points that maybe I haven't thought of? And it'll give you back that, and that might give you a different idea of how to approach their bleeding neck. And again, in the AI lab, these are the things that we're going to tackle. Training it with my own material, which is Swedish. Sylvia, I think we talked. This is, and I've been experimenting with this, not with language necessarily. It's getting much, much better with language. But what you do is you don't let it go to the internet. You provide it with all of your documentation. You provide it, and that's called RAG. It's RAG is retrieval augmented generation, which means that you're giving it the body of work to draw from. So if you're feeding it your information with your wording, and it could be a website or a book that somebody wrote that has all of the information in it, and it's written in Swedish, you can put that in there. It's getting better and better at languages, but this can absolutely be bypassed. You can bypass it drawing on its own knowledge by giving it the knowledge and telling it specifically, only draw from this knowledge base, which coincidentally, this is what Perry built for the with the IP vault. That's exactly what that is you feed it all of your information. It's private and secure, and it's not going out to the internet, and it's not clouding it. Now, this is a great question, and I had to put this in there. And I'm actually going, I'm even though this feels like it's a little tongue in cheek, I'm going to take this seriously. What's the fastest, most reliable way to start and build an AI-based business that makes stacks of cash month over month that can scale and eventually become close to being run on autopilot? This is
I
probably the
really want you guys to pay attention to this. This is the best part of Scott's presentation right here.
Well, I think this is, I personally, I think this is the easiest question to ask of all. You do exactly what you've already done to create a business that makes stacks of cash month over month that you can scale, that eventually runs on autopilot. AI won't do it for you, but it will take your next idea and it will help you refine your demographic. It'll help you refine your messaging. It'll help you write your copy. It'll help you even design your website. But you already have to know how to do this. AI is not going to do it for you. So thank you, John. That was the easiest question that I've had all day. And I think that perfectly makes my point on why you need to be a part of this experiment that we're running. And then we had some miscellaneous and general concerns. I'm not the one that asked this question. There's more than one Scott out there. Is it prime time now or in 3 to 5 years? Perry, let me ask you a question. Would somebody who read your Google AdWords book when you published it, would they be better off than somebody that found it 3 to 5 years later?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe rhetorical, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, this is, see, so much of this is a replay of what's already happened, and history is
Yes.
going to repeat itself. And I think we are roughly right now in the equivalent of about 2004. I think AI is today where internet advertising was 20 years ago.
Yep.
So let me put that in a little sharper context. So the dot-com crash was in 2001. 2002 and 3 were like the crater, where everybody was licking their wounds and cleaning up the mess. And then things started kicking around in '04 and '05, '06, '07. Internet advertising started booming as people started to actually figure out what it was. And for quite a while, you could be fairly unsophisticated and make a lot of money. And I think the most important thing was not whether you were making a lot of money early on, but whether you were learning the stuff and getting it under your belt and getting it into your muscle memory. Because there was an economic boom that happened in '05, '06, '07, and it was largely fueled by the internet. And the people who it was a really interesting combination of reading very old marketing books that really became a resurgence, and that's a Renaissance symptom.
Yep.
When people, Scott was talking about Florence, those guys discovered the ancient Greeks.
Yep.
People had dug up all those guys, you know, the math and the geometry and the philosophy and all that stuff. They dug it out and they're like, hey, people, this is really cool. And then at the same time, when there was the big boom with internet advertising, people were also trying all these tools because they were doing 1918 Claude Hopkins scientific advertising at now 10,000 times the speed. And there are things that you will only learn at 10,000 times faster that you will never learn at 1918 speed. And you can be comfortable with 10,000x speed, just like Germans are comfortable driving 100 miles an hour on the Autobahn. But you have to do it.
Yeah. And with the velocity of change that we're experiencing with AI. And maybe somebody asked me about this. I have a website that is a webcam on a neural chip that is powered by lab-grown brain cells, building these neural networks, and you can
Yeah.
watch the little cells go around and see all of the electronics in it. So 3 to 5 years in AI is like 300 to 500 years in anything else, or 30 to 50 years in anything else that we've experienced up to this point, and far as in terms of advancement. So this is 100% prime time, because Perry's right. You just need to refamiliarize yourself with what has always worked, and then use these two new technologies to launch that into the stratosphere. And your competition is asking this same question. And if they have a different answer than you could be left behind.
A person who learned digital advertising in 2004 was light years ahead of person who started in 2009.
Yes.
Light years. You
Yes.
cannot describe the difference. They had so many advantages, and it wasn't, so their business was ahead. Probably their finances were ahead, but their muscle memory was ahead. Their sense of the world was different. Their ability to like talk to somebody at a coffee shop, get an idea, and see how that idea is going to, like, you create a little machine in your mind. You're like, well, then this, then this, and this, and you can make 20 steps in about 10 seconds. It's the ability to do that that determines whether you're going to identify the successful business ideas versus the loser business ideas, and figure out where is the low-hanging fruit, and like where is the land of the blind where the man with one eye gets to be king.
Yeah.
A lot of our members, your job is not to outrun the bear. Your job is to outrun the other guy in the woods who doesn't outrun the bear. Lots of industries, lots of people are, there's people in construction, or massage therapists, or people that are experts on fitness, or whatever. And very few people in your field are aggressively embracing AI. And if you say, I'm going to get in Scott's class, I'm going to attend every session. If I miss a session, I'm going to go back and listen to it. I'm going to ask the questions. Scott hasn't even talked about the one-on-one time that he's offering with us. It's ridiculously generous. But you just say, I'm going to be a student of this thing. If you take me from, let's say, 1997 to 2007, I was an absolute marketing maniac. In 2007 was when I discovered Dan Kennedy, discovered direct marketing. I got fired from my sales job. I was bleeding money. My credit cards were stacking up. It was horrible. I said, when I realized that direct marketing is a real talent and a real skill and a real advantage in the world, I said, I am going to learn everything about this I possibly can. I'm going to be the biggest sponge you ever saw for this.
Yeah.
And for 10 years, I read every forum post. I read every book. I listened to everything I could possibly listen to. And it propelled me so far ahead of everybody. And one day I got an email from an old boss who didn't even work at the company that we had worked together at. He goes, "Hey, Perry, could we get together?" We got together and we had lunch. He was now he was in the title insurance business at that time. They didn't have a website or anything. He goes, "Perry, you worked for me 5 or 6 years ago and it didn't really work out. Can you help me?" Everything had completely flipped. When I worked for him, He was years ahead of me. He was a sales guy. He understood how to talk to purchasing agents. I was green. I was wet behind the ears. Now all of a sudden he's trying to catch up to the web. He has no idea how to do it. And he's like, could I hire you? And I said, no, actually you can't. I don't build websites. But here, I'll tell you some people who can. This is where you need to be with AI. The world is still putting on its shoelaces with AI. It has barely begun. You have not been left behind yet.
No.
But give it another 2 years.
Unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other two questions on that last slide is 4.0 worse than 4. That is not my experience. I wouldn't say exponentially, but is significantly better than 4. And OpenAI is now, the rumors are out there. They've got Strawberry and Orion that are coming out that are just going to be exponentially better than 4.0. The biggest change with 4.0 is it's half the cost. So what's interesting with this, and Perry, we could have a whole conversation about this, but the costs on producing these models are plummeting at a pretty consistent pace. So it's getting more and more inexpensive, which is giving more power, which helps us. It used to be this isn't the world of the $25,000 50-inch flat screen TV that came out that 10 years later it was $500, or sometimes you can get it for $199 at Walmart now, but it's 65 inches. Like, this stuff is happening quickly. So if you're just getting started, or if you're trying to get unstuck, that you're absolutely in the right place at the right time. Like, Perry's right. This has not passed you by, but it has progressed enough that things really are not changing the way that they were a year ago. A year ago, they were changing very, very quickly. The dust has kind of settled a little bit, and OpenAI is its personality, and Claude is its personality, and the leaders are separating themselves from the pack. When we talk about 80-20, we're going to be focusing on, this isn't 80-20, this is 97-3. We're going to be focusing on the 3%. Everything else is farther behind, and they're just not doing anything unique or new. So we're going to narrow it down. So when you join the Renaissance Lab, here's what you're going to get. It's two-hour calls every month. The first 30 minutes, we're going to talk about what's new, what I'm seeing in the news, what conversations I'm having. I'm going to share projects that I'm working on. Most of the time, I'll take your Q&A and your questions from the previous call, and I'll say, hey, I wanted to demonstrate this because I thought this looked really cool. And then we're going to spend 90 minutes doing lab work. We're going to create solutions. We're going to you're going to submit your questions. You're going to submit your projects. Now we may have too many to get to all the questions in every single call. So I'll try to categorize them and minimize them. And then if I didn't answer your specific call, everyone who joins Renaissance Lab gets a 30-minute call with me every single month that you're in the lab. So I charge $500 an hour to do AI consulting for people. So this alone, I'm telling you, in 30 minutes or less, and a lot of you that are on this call have probably had these calls with me, this will pay for itself it'll multiply your return. And then here's the coolest part. This is what I'm super excited about. We're going to take the transcripts from every single call, and we're going to build a RenAI chatbot that you'll have 24/7 access to. So you can ask it any question you want, and it will go back through all of the calls that we do. So this database, this knowledge base is going to grow every single month because it's going to add more content to it. And it's going to find the patterns, it's going to find the answers, and it's going to answer a lot of the questions that I could answer with you one-on-one, but you'll have access to it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it'll only get better. So join the Renaissance. That's what we're here for. This, like I said before, we're not selling anything. We'll never sell anything in this. This is a DMZ zone for having conversations where everybody is here to help. Now, I think the most valuable part of this program is going to be hearing the questions of the other people in the group, because it's going to dislodge something in your brain. You're going to hear somebody ask a question and you're going to say, man, I didn't think about it that way. I didn't think about asking it that way, or I didn't think about it coming up from that perspective. So every single call is going to be completely unique. It's going to be a completely different and revelatory experience for everybody who's involved. And there's no limits on this. There's no long-term commitments on this, but we're charging $3.99 a month. If you're not a part of Perry's New Renaissance Roundtable or AMN, New Renaissance members, it's $199 a month. And our first session is going to be next Wednesday. And because of the holidays, it's going to be a little weird, but it's typically going to be every 2 weeks on a Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So I want you all to go to perrymarshall.com/RenAI. Even if you're not sure if this is for you, we've got a lot more information there. And most importantly, and Perry, you took this is fun. We have an AI readiness quiz. If you're not sure if the Renaissance Lab is something for you, we've got a quiz that you're going to go through a few questions. And this is a custom GPT that I built. That's really, really cool. It's going to ask you a bunch of questions. It's going to give you a score, and it's going to tell you whether or not this program is good for you, because this isn't for everybody. If today is the first day you heard the word AI, this probably isn't going to be great experience for you. We're probably going to be a little bit high level. And maybe if you go back and watch my AI Simplified course, it'll work. If you're a programmer and you have questions about APIs or coding, you're probably going to want to go and look at Sam's 80/20 hyperdrive course. But this, not only will this quiz tell you where you sit, it's also going to identify the top 3 questions that you should bring to the first Renaissance Lab. So it's going to help you. It's going to help position how you're thinking about AI, let you know whether this is a good fit or not. And then it's going to give you a kickstart, and it's going to say, hey, based on what you said, want you to bring these things to the conversation, ask these questions, get these questions answered, and they're going to get you sent in the direction that you need. So my big ask is, check this out. Go to that page, go to that link, read through that, see if it fits you, take the AI readiness quiz. And then I have one more thing that I want to ask you. What do you think about this idea? Like, is this interesting? Is this something that, did we spark your imagination? Does it sound like this is a good trip? Please leave your comments or give us your comments and tell me what you think about this, because this is a little bit of an experiment. And that's what's so cool about it, is we don't know what it's going to be. I just know it's going to be amazing. And I just know it's going to be incredible. So if you could leave some comments in there, that's going to help me kind of get an idea of where we're going with this. And every call is going to help determine how to make the next call better and more valuable for you. So Perry, I can't thank you enough for giving me an opportunity. to set up my sandbox in your world here. I just think this is an incredible opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody, or as many of you as that thinks that this is a fit, next Wednesday and getting this thing started.
Scott mentioned or did not mention another part of this that I think is hugely important, or didn't say enough about it. Everybody who's part of this gets a 30-minute with Scott every month.
Yes.
Um, if you get access to his calendar, and if you want to get on his calendar and talk to him for half an hour and show him what you're doing and get ideas and input and advice, you can do that. Now, Scott's time bills at $500 an hour, so that alone is worth $250, just for that one-on-one call, not to mention all of the community, the AI bot, the 2 sessions every month, him covering the platform. So like, can you quickly explain again what the first few sessions, you have specific topics that you've already outlined for the next few weeks. Can you explain what that is,
Yeah,
Scott?
I did. And before I unpack that, I kind of want to go back to something you said earlier, the story that you told about your ex-employer that asked you, and you said, no, but I know somebody that can build a website. I know people that can help you solve your problems. So if I can't solve your problem, I know people that can, and I can help point you in the right direction. So the first 3, we're going to unpack ChatGPT. OpenAI, ChatGPT, started as the leader of the pack. It continues to be the leader of the pack, and it's going to be able to do 95% of what most people are going to want to do. I'm going to show you all of the features. I'm going to help you determine whether or not you need to pay for it, because when they released 4.0 a couple of months ago, they made their most powerful version available for free to everyone. And you have limitations on how much you can use it, but you still have access to it. The second call in September is going to be Claude. Now, Claude has released some very, very interesting features that are paid features, but Claude is a hair's breadth away from ChatGPT, but it does something completely different. So it's very, very interesting. And then the third call we're going to do in the beginning of October is we're going to talk about Poe. Poe.com is sort of a repository for AIs where you can create a single chat bot and you can test it with multiple AIs and see which one performs better. All of the images in my presentation were created using an image generator that's available on Poe. So actually, it's the same image generator that Elon Musk is using for X. It's called Flux. And so anytime there's a new AI, that's the community where you can go and you can have access to that for a very, very low cost. You can get access to a lot for free, but you can get access to the premium. It's like $20 a month. And if you use Poe, you don't have to pay for ChatGPT because you already have access to ChatGPT. So that's just one of the hacks that I'm going to show you and that we're going to talk about. And again, this is where we get stuff done. Like, this is where we eliminate all of the confusion and we get stuff done. And again, when answering people's broad questions, if I don't answer your specific question, you're on my calendar, we're having a conversation and we're getting it solved.
Yeah, I have a quick question for everybody in the chat. What year did you first hear the word webmaster? That there's this new job description called webmaster. Quick in the chat, let's see what the answer is.
Oops, that's not it. Chat. 2003, 2004, 1994, 2000, 97, 2003, 2004, 2001, 1999. So late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay, so there were webmasters, and then after that, there were web copywriters, and then after that, there were sales funnel specialists. And then after that, there were Google Analytics specialists. And all of this is happening all over again. And I've noticed something, and I really, for those of you who are sort of figuring out your career or figuring out your business, I want you to stop and think about this for a second. I have noticed that 90% of employees in 90% of companies are not going to sit there and figure out how to automate their job. They're not going to sit there, most employees, not going to build tools that make them 2 times, 3 times, 4 times as productive. Companies are going to depend on specialists who understand AI to do that. If you join Scott's class, you will know how to use AI, and you will have people like my boss, Fred, asking you, how do I do this stuff?
Yep.
They're going to need people to figure it out. If you could be a consultant and you could be going to a company every Tuesday and sitting next to people in their cubicles going, what do you do? Like, show me what you do. And they'll sit there and do something, and you'll say, oh, I can make that 10 times faster with an AI tool. And you can get a nice fee for doing that. Or you could do it inside of your own company. But everybody is not going to do this. But a whole bunch of people are going to be really good at this in a year or two, because like Scott said, the AI industry is coming together, and you don't want to be left behind. And you can, so if you go get consulting gigs and you get presented with problems, you can bring them to Scott and to the AI lab, and they will help you figure it out. It's just like in 2003 and 4 and 5, I was a marketing consultant, and I had clients, and I did project work for people, and I would go see a client, they would present me with a problem, I would go back and I would get on webinars and phone calls and masterminds, and I would ask people, how would you solve this problem? And the community would help me solve the problem. I would go back to the client and they'd say, Perry, you're a genius. Well, mostly I was a guy who listened very, very carefully to what other people were doing. And I paid huge amount of attention to every, like, we have our Google group in the Renaissance Club forum. I would be members of a group like that, and I would read every single post, and I would internalize all of that knowledge, because I just felt like I wanted to know everything. So this is starting September 4. Scott, take us home.
Yeah, no, I don't, just as Perry said, I've talked to a lot of people who are AI consultants, because they're having conversations with people like me. And all you have to do is, like you said, Perry, you don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the slowest guy running from the bear. And the only way to do that is to be a part of the conversation. And that's what we've built here, is we're creating a safe place to have a conversation, to ask the hard questions, to demonstrate the answers, that you can then take that and position yourself as the AI expert. And you don't have to start an AI business. The first place you start is you apply it to your own business, and then just that experience of making improvements. And I have to tell you, I have built so many cool solutions that I'm super excited to be able to share with you guys. So if you have questions, chances are I've already thought about it, and I've already built a solution, and I can show you how to build it yourself. So I'm really excited about this. I love the flexibility of this. And this is just going to be an absolute blast. So please join me. Thank you for spending your time. I apologize that we went a little bit long here, but when I get excited, that's what happens. So if you want to do this a couple of times a month, come on in. The water is nice.
Thank you, Scott, for putting this together.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great Thursday, and we'll see you September 4, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to kick this off. Take care, everybody.